Remy. I'm a co-founder and organizer of GPS STEM Data Science Career Cohort with Chris. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Abdon Iniquez. Abdon graduated from UC Irvine with a PhD degree in mathematical, computational, and system biology, where he worked on building a selection framework to identify plausible model in order to suggest mechanisms responsible for therapy resistant in cancer. And after graduating from UCI in 2019, Abdon started his career as a data scientist with Bio-Rad Laboratories, where he currently works.
I started an internship in 2019 at Bio-Rad. It was just a summer internship, which turned into a full-time. So I did the summer, and then I went back to school, finished up, and then in January of 2020, before COVID, almost from the start of my internship till now, almost 2 years working as a data scientist.
Can you describe what your typical day as a data scientist in Bio-Rad looks like? And
yeah. So it's a regular 8 to 5 day where it depends, but just on a regular day, it's I'll have maybe 2 to 3 hours of meetings a day, where we talk about what we're going to do, which is counterintuitive because you would think that you would be working more than meeting about what you're going to work on. But there's a good amount of meetings, maybe 2 to 3 hours. So that's 25%. The maybe like 30% will be me actually working on some of my projects. And so that's, or maybe like 40%. So that's 60%. And the rest of the time is me contacting either data engineers or talking with people who host data lakes to kind of get a better understanding of what data we have, what we need to clean. And that's, I guess, part of the project, but in its own, it's a big part of what a data scientist is, and just getting the right data for what you want to work on and how you want to clean it. And maybe 10%, which I might have already gone over 100, is getting requests from different leadership roles, asking for maybe some analysis or doing some type of kind of understanding on some of the questions they have using data, try to answer their questions. So it's projects, but also kind of reporting, analysis, and then meetings is pretty much my days in general.
Thanks, Abdon. There's no question yet, so I just want to ask follow-up questions to your answers. How many projects do you typically have at the same time? And also, who do you usually work with as a data scientist in Bio-Rad? And what type of, I guess, projects do you usually get at your company?
Mm-hmm. So we work with a lot of different types of people. If we're looking at an overview of a project, we're going to be working with really close with the data and data engineers to make sure that everything is correct. Have any questions on where we can get additional data and where to access it. Right now, I'm working on a project to try to forecast demand of certain products, and that's where we kind of use time series modeling to try to understand shipment patterns and seeing what the demand is. And for there, we work with a lot of different people. We work with senior leadership to understand what are the biggest products we want to look at, product planners that kind of that are responsible for these products to make sure that they're building enough, and however they're building enough and when they're building it, and also a lot of different managers that are within there that you could just sprinkle on to make sure that we're doing everything correctly, and we're modeling it correctly as well.
Yeah, so typically how many projects do you usually get at the same time?
Oh, I didn't answer that question. It's right at the moment, it's 2 to 3. I would have
Mhm.
2 to 3 projects.
Cool, thanks. So I'd like to open the floor if anyone wants to ask a question, or I would just keep on asking question. You can unmute yourself or type in the chat. What's the official name of your position, and are you more on the R&D side or project management?
Um, I would say that more on, so my official role is data scientist. I think it's more of a research and development type of role, where I'm actually going in there and using my PhD skills to do research and try to better help the company by modeling.
And what is the official name of your position? Is it?
Yeah, I said the data
Oh,
scientist.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's no like senior or anything. Just
No, just
okay.
data, I guess data scientist one.
Okay. Does Bio-Rad kind of rank you
It
like that with more
yeah,
seniority?
yeah, I guess it's like 1, 2, and 3, and then I think it goes from there.
So when you first enter the company, what will be your title?
When I first entered it,
Yeah, like if someone who, let's say, because I know that you did an internship with them before, but let's say if someone who's just fresh out PhD and try to apply for a job, then
mhm.
what kind of title should they look for?
I think it's very dependent on the company. I think like a bigger company, you'll get stuck at like data scientist 1 or 2.
Mhm,
But if you're go looking for more startup companies, I think they kind of inflate the role sometimes, and like you might be able to get like a senior data scientist.
mhm.
But I'm not sure. That was my experience, and it could be totally different to somebody else.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, how demand is your job compared to your time as a PhD student?
How demanding?
Yeah,
Oh,
how demanding is your job compared to your time as a PhD student?
um, how demanding is it? It's in the fact that you have like your responsibility, I think, is a little greater working. It's the responsibility is a little higher, but the demand is, I would say, is less than a PhD. I don't know, you as a PhD student, you're kind of creating something, and it's yours. Whereas what I guess I'm also doing something similar to that, but I don't know. It just feels different. I don't know how to answer that question.
Um, in terms of, so you said for, in terms of responsibility, it might be the same, where like your role, and I guess, so are you working on only a certain part of a project, right? And
Mhm.
okay, yeah. Okay, so next question, how was the application interview process? And how many other places did you apply to, or since you did the internship there, did that move to Bio-Rad to the top of your list? So I guess let's just start with the first question. How was the application and interview process?
Um, it was like a standard data scientist interview. You have your phone interview with HR. Then I had the an interview with who my manager is now. And then had a third where I met with a lot of different people and then talked about my projects and what talked about my projects to different senior leadership roles with kind of like a kind of working out a coding exercise as well. And so that was the first question, Floyd. Uh,
Um,
how many other places did I apply to? Oh God, it's so many. Everyone wants 5 years. What is it? 5 years experience for an internship role. Um, it's I applied. I think I applied when I was really serious. I applied to 5 places a day, and every place that I applied to, I kind of became friends or followed people on LinkedIn, and they recommended that after you apply, you should definitely try to contact hiring managers from the places that you applied to and try to start a conversation. And sometimes it worked, and I would highly recommend that in applying to a place and then going the extra step of telling somebody, maybe a hiring manager or somebody at that company, and saying, hey, I applied to this place. I think I have the necessary skills for this position, and I'd love to talk more about it. And in doing so, um, your name gets out there, and your not always, but sometimes your application will go to the top, and you'll actually get an interview, which is the hardest part, because once you have the interview, you could then woo them, right?
um, just to follow up on that, how do you identify who the hiring managers are on LinkedIn?
Sometimes it's on LinkedIn, sometimes it's on Glassdoor, and sometimes I just random. So I would go on LinkedIn and I would go to hiring manager, company, insert company, and then I would look at the location that I applied for, and I'd look for the best role, so a technical hiring manager, and then I would then message them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, got it. Great tip. Thank you. Someone actually asked if the data science interviewer will take into account that someone is not from data science, computer science, or stats program.
Um, I I'm not. What was the question again?
So let's say if someone applying
Mhm.
to a data science job and their background is, let's say, in biology, or in, let's say, some kind of major or background that is not data science
Mhm.
explicitly, or computer science or statistic, do the interviewers kind of like give them, or I guess have questions are that are slightly less on the technical side? I think that's what they
So
mean.
so everybody's gonna have the same interview. So you would, I think if you come from the not so technical like stats or computer science, you can kind of beef up your resume and maybe do a few like little side projects where you apply machine learning or something, and put it on your GitHub, and then put that on your resume and say, I do have experience even though I'm not from statistics or I'm not from computer science, and I do understand. And I mean, if you do the interviews and you could do the coding examples and everything, then I think you're fully capable of getting that job.
All right. So how did you convince your PI to not let you do an internship? And do you think it's a valuable experience to pursue?
How did I convince him? I was like, hey, I got an internship, and he's like, oh, great, you should do it.
Oh,
uh, John Lowengrove is an amazing person, and I was towards the end of my graduate career, so I don't think it was he didn't need much convincing. But yeah, I do recommend it. Um, the field of data science, if you want to get into data science, is huge. So, um, as of now, I'm more of my data science role that I consider myself is more like on the finance and business analytics and doing things like that. Um, and trying to use machine learning to kind of optimize something in within the business. Whereas you can you can definitely take a more research oriented. There's data science roles in Bio-Rad where you're kind of, I think they were hiring previously. It was in the life science group where you were building classifiers for. I think they had like a lot of images of cells and identifying cells, so using neural nets and stuff like that, building those types of models. And I feel like that's much different from what I'm doing, and which can also, you could get yourself a job at Google, and that's also more research oriented. Where I had a friend who worked in, it was agricultural research using machine learning for Google or something. So it's huge. And if you can do a few internships to see what you like to do, I think that would be amazing. But you first need to convince your PI to um, let you take the summer off.
Okay, thanks. Um, what languages do you use? Do you have a preference for Python versus R? And to what extent do you use SQL?
Um, Python, I use Python. R is perfectly fine as well. Um, and I use SQL on a daily basis. So you need to get data somehow. So that's, but the thing was that when I started, I just said, hey, I want to learn Python because open source, and I don't want to work on, or I don't want to go somewhere and say, oh, I don't know how to code because you don't have a MATLAB license, or because that's the only language I knew. So I said, I'm going to learn Python. That's the standard. And I didn't realize that SQL is used so much. Yeah, it's just used so much. And what do I want? Oh, when I was learning, I didn't actually, I did a few examples. It was like a just really simple ones, because it's kind of boring where when you're trying to learn and you're just, this is a little script to pull some data or manipulate some data to just pull it, and that's all it is. Whereas when you're scripting, you could actually get something better. I don't know. That was to me. But when I got into the job, it's definitely, I've used it. I use it every day, and I'm learning more techniques on it, and I think it's very useful, and everybody should learn the basics of it before they start applying, because that's going to be definitely in your interview. So you're going to have either Python or R, and also SQL, because you need to use that so often.
Is your colleagues mostly from computer science, statistic, math, or master PhD? What's the proportion of STEM PhD compared to other major? For example, like economics and master PhD. Since you did mention that like there was along for your line of work, there is a lot of like financial business analytics as well.
Yeah. So in terms on like the data side, I don't work with too many people. I work with a biostatistician, so he got a master's in biostats, and then I'll work with some other folks from the life science group, and there I think believe he had a biology PhD. So I mean, it's not just stats or computer science.
Um, and I know that your specialty is mostly in machine learning, but how do you determine which subfield of data science to pursue, I guess? Because there are more like data, um, what do you call it? Like data visualizations, and then there's also machine learning, like what you do.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you have any kind of tips on how to choose which subfield of data
No,
science?
I would just say just kind of get exposed to these different sides and see um, what you like best. I don't have an answer
Okay.
for that.
Okay. What is the most common machine learning algorithm do you use in your positions?
So I always like to start simple, and simple usually always does well enough. Because once you start getting more complex, then then leadership's going to ask what does it do, but then you realize it's just a black box and you don't have an answer for it, and they tend to not trust it as much as for example, if we're looking at regression, just like a either like a linear regression or logistic or something like that if you want to work on classification. But it's sticking to simple algorithms, but it's those are the ones that usually always work. But I tend to always work them in parallel, where I use random forest as well.
Um, is the data science position in biotech companies more focused on stats, data science, or programming?
I don't know, as a whole. That's I don't have a general statement for that. At least for Bio-Rad. Um, uh, is it focus on stats, data science, or programming? Um,
So,
the idea of a lot of just data science in general is what you have. It's like a PhD. You have a question, whether it's your PI or it's your manager. Uh, you want to get to a solution, and and you use your tools, where in our cases, in your case might be doing experiments if you're a biologist, pipetting, and getting some results. If you're a data scientist, you're going to be using your tools of data, and you need your programming and stats. So it's going to be project dependent, and whatever you're doing dependent. So yeah, I guess in my particular role, I write script every day as well. So it's I'm in front of a computer just programming all day. It's not very sexy, the 21st century data scientist, best job, yeah.
yeah.
And all
Are
you're
you
doing,
going are you going back to the office now, or are you still hybrid or like remote
I'm
completely?
still remote. I'm sure that I'll be the one of the last groups of people to go to go back, since I can code anywhere.
Yeah. How did you prepare for the coding interviews?
Um, So pick up projects, I would say, because they're going to be asking you some very general questions. But also for the specific questions, there's leak code. I use a lot of leak code, and there's also I used this book here. So it's elements of programming, and this has all the questions. But then again, like I said, data science is you have so many subfields that um, this book was a lot of for more software oriented interviews, but um, leak code has very usually for data scientists, if you stick to the easy and medium level questions, those will be asked for data scientists. The hard ones are more for software.
So do you have a book or to recommend on the essential kind of math knowledge that we need to know to get into the data science field?
Yeah, I I have a list. I have a list of books that I could send over to you, um, and it has maybe like 7 or 8 books, and they're either machine learning, statistics, or kind of programming. Since a lot of the time I'm cleaning data, and pandas is really helpful for that.
Thank you. That would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? We have three more minutes. So how do you keep up with all of the new algorithms and things that are coming out with data science? Like there's a kind of whole new language that are apparently really great for machine learning, like Julia. What kind of sources do you use to keep up with like the current newest things on the block, I guess?
Um, so I actually um reserve some time within my day, like within the week, to just kind of read up on articles on either things I'm doing or things that are newer. And I'm also like signed up to like emails where there'll be different cases, different scenarios of them using machine learning in business um, to get some type of solution, and I like to read those as well. So I could send you a link of those as well that I'm signed up for.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. That's So how was your transition like going from, let's say, going from PhD into industry? Was it a lot of learning curve on how to, like to learn the culture and also, as you said, learn business analytics as well? How was that transition like?
Yeah, it was a little different. I I really enjoyed the 8 to 5. That was a nice change from being a PhD student where it's all day and all night. The best the best line that my manager told me one day was, he grabbed my shoulder and he said, he's all right. He's like, you can go home now. He's like, finish it on Monday. And
Isn't that nice? That's
but
like the opposite of PhD.
that aspect of it was, so it was like a little bit slower than like a PhD. Sometimes PIs are a little more demanding, but kind of looking at it in a different way of business, and that was something that I had to pick up, and I'm still learning, and it's something that's you're you're not taught that as a PhD student.
Yeah. So for the last minute, I guess I would just ask if there's anything that we didn't ask, but you think that we should know, going to data science field, going to the industry that you've learned.
Um, don't go into the field if you don't like cleaning the dirtiest data. Because usually if you go online, you get these really nice data sets and you say, oh, I can apply machine learning. But more times than not, you're going to be just in the weeds trying to make sure that this data set is good enough for you to apply your machine learning algorithm, which is the smallest part of your actual job. And a lot of it is getting the right data, cleaning it, and yeah, that's my one thing that I wish I knew, that that's a lot of the time that I'm doing. But it's really fun, and I really enjoy it. So if you guys
Yeah.
have any other questions, feel free to send an email, and I'll try to help as best as I can.
Yes. And Abdon is also on LinkedIn, so make sure you are connected with him on LinkedIn. And it is 12:32 now, so thank you, Abdon. We're very appreciative of your time, so I'll let you go now. Thank you so much for coming today to our GPS STEM event. And thank you everyone for showing up to attend this event. Yeah, thank you.